The iron grip around Maya Delacroix's wrist made her bones ache, and the stench of cheap cologne mixed with old sweat turned her stomach as the debt collector slammed her against the brick wall of the alley. "Your brother owes $50,000, he growled, his face inches from hers, breath hot and rancid. "And since he's disappeared, that debt falls on you, sweetheart." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs, her free hand scrabbling uselessly against his chest. She'd been walking home from her late shift at the hospital where she worked as a nurse, exhausted and vulnerable, when he'd grabbed her from behind and dragged her into this narrow passage between two crumbling buildings. The streetlights barely penetrated the darkness here, and the distant sounds of traffic felt like they belonged to another world entirely. "I don't have that kind of money," she gasped, trying to twist away. "I've been paying what I can every month, just like I promised, not enough." His other hand came up to grip her throat, not quite squeezing but threatening. "Mr. Castellano is tired of waiting. He wants his money, or he wants something else as collateral." The implication in his tone made her skin crawl. Maya had known her brother Ethan was in trouble, known he'd gotten mixed up with the wrong people and their dangerous money. But she'd never imagined it would come to this. He'd vanished 3 weeks ago, leaving her alone to face the consequences of his reckless choices. "Please," she whispered, hating how small her voice sounded. "Give me more time, I'll figure something out. Time's up." The debt collector's grip tightened, and Maya felt genuine fear spike through her veins. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Her vision started to blur at the edges. Then everything changed. The temperature dropped so suddenly that her breath misted in the air. The debt collector's eyes went wide, his fingers loosening slightly, as he looked over his shoulder at something Maya couldn't see. The shadows behind him seemed to thicken and move, coalescing into a shape that shouldn't exist in the rational world she'd always known. "Release her." The voice that emerged from the darkness was like velvet over steel, cultured and ancient and absolutely commanding. The debt collector spun around, letting go of Maya entirely. She slumped against the wall, gasping, as her attacker fumbled for something in his jacket. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone far beyond your understanding." The figure stepped forward, and Maya's breath caught for an entirely different reason. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with hair so pale it seemed to glow silver white in the dim light. His skin held the same luminous quality, like moonlight given form, and his features were sharp and aristocratic, high cheekbones, a straight nose, full lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. He wore a black suit that looked like it cost more than Maya's annual salary, perfectly tailored to his lean, powerful frame. But it was his eyes that truly captured her attention. They were crimson, deep and endless as blood, and they held centuries of knowledge and power that made her feel impossibly small. The debt collector pulled a gun from his jacket, hands shaking. "Stay back, or I'll—" He never finished the sentence. The pale stranger moved faster than Maya's eyes could track, and suddenly the gun was in his hand instead, crushed to twisted metal between his fingers like it was made of paper. The debt collector made a strangled sound of terror. "You dare threaten me?" The stranger's voice remained perfectly calm, but something in it made Maya's primitive hindbrain scream danger. "You dare to put your hands on her?" "I was just doing my job, man, I didn't know." "Your job?" The stranger tilted his head, and in that moment he looked predatory, inhuman. "Your job is finished. You will return to your employer and tell him that Maya Delacroix is under my protection. Her debts are paid. If anyone from your organization approaches her again, I will personally ensure that every single one of you understands the true meaning of suffering. Do you comprehend me?" The debt collector nodded frantically, his face pale with terror. "Good, now run." The man didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet, then turned and fled down the alley. His footsteps echoed for a moment before fading into silence. Maya stood frozen against the wall, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. The stranger turned to face her fully, and those crimson eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. "Are you injured?" His voice had softened slightly, though it still carried that undercurrent of power. She shook her head, not trusting her voice. Up close, he was even more striking, beautiful in a way that seemed almost dangerous, like staring directly at something humans weren't meant to witness. His features were too perfect, too symmetrical, and that white hair fell to his shoulders in a way that should have looked feminine, but somehow only enhanced his masculine presence. "Who are you?" she finally managed. Something flickered in his eyes, amusement perhaps, or something darker. "My name is Lucien Deveraux, and you, Maya Delacroix, have been drawing my attention for quite some time. I don't understand." "No, I don't imagine you do." He took a step closer, and Maya caught his scent, something like night-blooming flowers and old books, and something else she couldn't identify. But you will. Come, this alley is not a safe place for a mortal woman at night, mortal. The word slipped out before she could stop it, and Lucien's lips curved into a genuine smile that revealed teeth just slightly too sharp to be human. Ah, he said softly. So you've already guessed, haven't you? Your instincts are better than I expected. Maya's back pressed harder against the wall. You're not human. No, I am not. He extended a hand toward her, palm up in a gesture of invitation. I am what your kind calls vampire, and I am the one who has claimed you as mine. The words should have terrified her. She should have run, screamed, done anything except what she actually did, which was stare at his offered hand and feel something deep in her chest respond to his words like a key turning in a lock. Claimed me? Her voice came out as barely a whisper. It is a long story, and this is not the place to tell it. Will you come with me willingly, or must I insist? Despite the ominous words, there was something in his expression that told her he would respect her choice. He was giving her power in this moment, even though they both knew he could simply take what he wanted. Maya looked from his hand to his face, searching for any sign of deception. All she found was patient intensity and something that might have been concern. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was insane, that she should refuse and run as fast as her legs could carry her. But she'd just been attacked in an alley by a violent criminal, and this impossible stranger had saved her. He'd paid her debts with a few words and a display of supernatural power. And something in those crimson eyes called to a part of her she hadn't known existed. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, cool but not cold, strong but careful. A wise choice, Lucien murmured, though you may not believe that for some time. Before Maya could respond, the world tilted and blurred around her. She felt a sensation like falling and flying simultaneously, and then everything snapped back into focus. They were no longer in the alley. Maya gasped, stumbling slightly, and Lucien's other hand came to her waist to steady her. They stood in what appeared to be an enormous library, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves stretching up into shadows that the hanging lamps couldn't quite penetrate. Rich Persian rugs covered dark hardwood floors, and scattered throughout were leather armchairs and small tables that looked antique and priceless. Where are we? She breathed, pulling away from him to turn in a slow circle. My home, one of them at least. Lucien moved to a side table where crystal decanters held various liquids. This is my residence beneath the city. The entrance is hidden, protected by magic and careful architecture. No one can find it unless I wish them to. Beneath the city? Maya's mind reeled. How is that possible? Vampires have existed alongside humanity for millennia, Maya. We have learned to adapt, to create spaces that serve our needs while remaining hidden from mortal eyes. He poured something dark red into a glass wine. She hoped desperately, and then water into another. He offered her the water, which she accepted with shaking hands. Sit, please. You've had a shock. That was an understatement. Maya sank into one of the leather chairs, the soft material enveloping her like an embrace. Lucien settled into the chair opposite hers, crossing one leg over the other in a gesture that seemed impossibly elegant and old-fashioned. You said I've been drawing your attention, she began, trying to organize the 1,000 questions stampeding through her mind. What does that mean? Lucien swirled the red liquid in his glass. Definitely wine, she told herself firmly, and studied her with those unsettling eyes. 3 months ago you donated blood at a hospital drive. Do you remember? Maya nodded slowly. They always need donations, and I'm O-negative, so universal donor, Lucien interrupted. Rare, valuable. The blood supply centers sell portions of their collected blood to private medical facilities. One of those facilities has an arrangement with my people. We purchase blood that would otherwise be destroyed due to age or contamination. The implications of his words settled over her like a heavy blanket. You drink human blood. Of course, we are vampires, Maya. That is what we require to survive. He said it so matter-of-factly, as though discussing the weather. But we have evolved beyond mindless hunting. Most of my kind purchase blood from legitimate sources, or maintain relationships with willing donors. We are not the monsters your stories paint us as. Most, she latched onto that word. There are always exceptions. Rogues who refuse to follow our laws, who kill recklessly and draw attention to our existence. They are dealt with. Something hard entered his expression. I do not tolerate threats to my people or to the secrecy that protects us all. Maya took a sip of water, trying to calm her racing heart. So you tasted my blood. Why would that make you claim me? Lucien leaned forward, his intensity making her breath hitch. Because I am not merely a vampire, Maya. I am the Vampire King, ruler of the North American territories, and in 900 years of existence I have never encountered blood that sang to me the way yours does. 900 years, the number was incomprehensible. She stared at him, this impossibly beautiful creature who looked no older than 30, and tried to wrap her mind around the centuries contained in his gaze. I don't understand what that means, she admitted. Neither do I entirely. But the moment I tasted even that small sample of your blood, everything in me recognized something essential, something I have searched for across countless lifetimes. He set down his glass and leaned back, giving her space. Vampires can form bonds with humans, though it is rare, a connection that transcends the ordinary relationship between our kinds. I believe you are meant to be my mate, Maya, my companion, my equal. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Maya felt her world tilting again, everything she'd thought she understood about reality crumbling away. That's impossible, she whispered. We just met, you don't even know me, don't I? Lucien's smile was sad. I have been watching over you for 3 months, Maya. I know you work double shifts at the hospital to pay your brother's debts. I know you volunteer at the homeless shelter on your days off. I know you take in stray cats and cry at sad movies and sing off key in the shower. At her shocked expression, he added, I have not invaded your privacy inappropriately, but I have guards stationed near your apartment, ensuring your safety. They report to me. She should have been angry at the invasion, the stalking. Instead, she felt something else, a strange warmth at the idea that someone had been protecting her, watching over her during these difficult months. Why didn't you approach me sooner? She asked. I needed to be certain, and I needed to understand the danger you were in. His expression darkened. Your brother's debts put you in the path of dangerous men. I could not allow that to continue. So you paid them off, just like that? I am a king, Maya. I have resources beyond your imagining. $50,000 is nothing to me. He paused. But your safety is everything. The conviction in his words made something flutter in her chest. This was insane. All of it was insane. She should be running, screaming, calling for help. Instead, she found herself asking, what happens now? Lucien's expression softened. That depends on you. I will not force you into anything you do not wish. You may leave here tonight and return to your life, with my protection remaining in place. Your debts will stay paid, and you will not be harmed. Or you stay. You learn about my world, about what it would mean to be bonded to me. You give us a chance to see if this connection is real. He held her gaze. I feel certain it is, but you must choose freely without coercion. Maya looked down at her hands, still trembling slightly from the adrenaline of the attack and the shock of everything that had followed. Part of her wanted to refuse, to cling to the normal life she'd always known, but that life hadn't been good to her lately. She was drowning in her brother's mistakes, working herself to exhaustion, barely surviving. And there was something about Lucien that called to her in a way she couldn't explain. Despite his inhuman nature, despite the danger he clearly represented, she felt safer in his presence than she had in months. If I stay, she said slowly, I want answers. To everything. No more secrets, agreed. And I want to be able to leave if I choose. No prisoner situation. You have my word, though I would ask that you allow my guards to accompany you if you venture into the city for your own protection. She nodded, then took a deep breath. Then I'll stay, at least for tonight, at least to hear the rest of this story. The smile that broke across Lucien's face was radiant, transforming his austere features into something breathtaking. You honor me, Maya, more than you know. He stood and offered his hand again, and this time when she took it, she felt a spark of something pass between them like static electricity, but warmer, more alive. Lucien's eyes widened slightly, and she knew he'd felt it too. Come, he said quietly. Let me show you your chambers. Tomorrow I will introduce you to my world properly. Tonight you need rest. He led her through corridors that seemed to belong to a Gothic castle transplanted beneath modern streets. The walls were stone but hung with tapestries and paintings that looked centuries old. Candles burned in sconces, though she also noticed modern electric lights cleverly hidden in the architecture. It was a place caught between eras, ancient and contemporary at once. They stopped at a heavy wooden door carved with intricate designs. Lucien pushed it open to reveal a bedroom that made Maya's breath catch. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, draped in deep blue velvet. More bookshelves lined the walls, and a doorway led to what appeared to be a private bathroom done in marble and gold. This is too much, she protested weakly. This is what you deserve. Lucien gestured to an armoire. You'll find clothing in there, various sizes. I took the liberty of having things prepared. At her look, he added, I was hopeful. Despite everything, Maya felt a smile tug at her lips. You're very confident for someone who just told me I could refuse you. I am a king, he said simply. Confidence comes with the territory. But I also know what I felt when I tasted your blood, Maya. That kind of connection is not one-sided. I knew you would feel something too, even if you didn't understand it yet. He was right, damn him. She had felt something the moment their eyes met in that alley: recognition, attraction, and something deeper she couldn't name. "Will you be nearby?" The question slipped out before she could stop it, and she felt her cheeks heat with embarrassment. Lucien's expression gentled. "My chambers are at the end of this corridor. If you need anything, anything at all, you have only to call my name. I will hear you, and I will come." Vampire hearing, among other abilities. "Sleep well, Maya Delacroix. Tomorrow your new life begins." He bowed slightly, a gesture from another age, and left her alone. Maya stood in the center of the opulent room, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. Just hours ago she'd been a normal woman working a normal job, struggling with normal problems. Now she stood in an underground palace, claimed by a vampire king who believed she was his mate. She should have been terrified. Instead, as she changed into a silk nightgown from the armoire and slipped between the softest sheets she'd ever felt, what she felt was anticipation. Whatever came next, it would be anything but normal. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what she needed. Maya woke to soft candlelight and the feeling that someone was watching her. She sat up quickly, her heart hammering, and found Lucien sitting in a chair by the window, though the window showed only stone walls beyond, she realized. They were underground. There was no natural light here. "How long have you been there?" she asked, voice rough with sleep. "Not long. I wanted to ensure you were settling in well." He looked different in the candlelight, softer somehow, though no less magnificent. "It is evening in the world above. You slept through the day." "Evening?" Maya glanced around for a clock and found an antique piece on the mantel showing 6 p.m. "I never sleep that late. You were exhausted. Your body needed the rest." Lucien stood with that preternatural grace. "If you are ready, I thought we might share a meal. I have food prepared for you, and then I can begin answering your questions." Maya nodded, running a hand through her tangled hair. "Give me a few minutes, of course. There are fresh clothes in the armoire, and the bathroom is stocked with anything you might need." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Maya, I am glad you are here." Before she could respond, he was gone. 40 minutes later, showered and dressed in dark jeans and a soft sweater that fit perfectly, Maya followed the sound of voices to what appeared to be a formal dining room. The long table could have seated 20, but only 2 places were set, close together at one end. Lucien stood speaking with a woman who was clearly also a vampire, same pale hair and skin, same ethereal beauty, though her eyes were violet instead of red. "Maya." Lucien gestured her forward. "May I introduce Lady Seraphine, my second in command and oldest friend?" The woman studied Maya with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "So this is the human who has captured our king's attention. I confess I did not believe it until now." "Sarah," Lucien's voice held a warning note. "Peace, I mean no offense." Seraphine's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "I am simply protective of Lucien. He has waited a very long time for a true mate. I would hate to see him disappointed." "I make no promises," Maya said, surprising herself with her boldness. "I'm still trying to understand what any of this means. Honest, at least." "That is good." Seraphine inclined her head. "I will leave you to your meal. But know this, Maya Delacroix, if you hurt him, king or not, you will answer to me." She swept from the room before Maya could formulate a response. Lucien sighed heavily. "You must forgive Sarah. She has been with me for 6 centuries. She believes that gives her the right to threaten my potential mate, does it?" Maya asked, moving to the table where a covered dish waited. "Perhaps." Lucien pulled out her chair with old-fashioned courtesy. "She helped raise me, in a sense. When I was newly turned and struggling with what I had become, she took me under her protection and taught me control. I owe her everything." Maya filed that information away as she uncovered her plate to find a beautifully prepared salmon with roasted vegetables. Her stomach growled embarrassingly loudly. "You were turned? You weren't born a vampire?" "No one is born a vampire." Lucien settled into his own chair with a glass of deep red liquid she was trying very hard not to think about. "We are made through an exchange of blood. The vampire drains the human to the point of death, then gives back their own blood. If the human is strong enough, they survive the transformation. If not," he trailed off with a shrug. "That's horrible," Maya whispered. "It can be, if done without consent. But many choose this life willingly, seeking immortality or power or escape from death." His crimson eyes found hers. "I was turned during a battle in the year 1124. I was a knight, fighting in what your history books barely remember as a minor border skirmish. I was dying, my chest pierced by a lance, and a vampire named Constant found me. He offered me a choice: death or eternal life at a price. What price? My humanity, my mortality, my ability to walk in the sun." Lucien's expression was distant, lost in memory. "I was 28 years old and terrified of death. I chose to become what I am now. I have never entirely decided whether that was wisdom or cowardice. Maya took a bite of her salmon, trying to process the weight of centuries in his words. You said you're a king now. How did that happen? Through strength, politics, and a great deal of bloodshed, if I am honest. He swirled his glass absently. Vampires are territorial creatures. We organize ourselves into courts, with the strongest ruling over the others. I was turned by a powerful vampire, which gave me advantages others lacked. I learned quickly, fought well, and accumulated power. When the previous king of this territory fell to challengers, I stepped into the vacuum and claimed the crown. He smiled slightly. That was 400 years ago. I have held it ever since. Do people challenge you? Occasionally. Less so now than in the early years. I have proven myself too many times for most to risk it. There was no boast in his words, just simple fact. But there are always ambitious vampires, always those who believe they could rule better. It is the nature of our kind. Maya ate in silence for a moment, thinking, what happens if you have a mate? A human mate? Does that make them a target? Lucien's jaw tightened. Yes. Which is one reason I have been so careful in approaching you. The moment my court knows you exist, there will be those who see you as a weakness to exploit. But they would be wrong. A true mate bond makes a vampire stronger, not weaker. How? It gives us purpose beyond our own existence, something to fight for, to protect with everything we are. He leaned forward. And if the bond is completed fully, if you were to become vampire yourself, you would share my power. You would be a queen in truth, not merely in title. The idea sent a shiver through her, whether fear or excitement, she couldn't tell. Is that what you want, to turn me? I want you to choose your own path, Lucien said carefully. If you decide to remain human, I will protect you for as long as you live. If you choose transformation, I would be honored to be the one to give you that gift. But that decision is yours alone, and it need not be made for a very long time. Maya nodded slowly, appreciating his honesty. Tell me about the bond. How does it work? It begins with recognition, which has already occurred. My blood recognizes yours as a perfect complement, something that calls to the deepest part of what I am. Lucien's voice dropped lower, more intimate. The next stage requires exchange. If you were to drink a small amount of my blood, willingly, it would create a connection between us. You would be able to sense my emotions, my location. I would be able to do the same with you. That bond can be maintained at that level indefinitely, or it can be deepened. How? His eyes seemed to glow in the candlelight. Through physical intimacy. Through the mingling of blood and pleasure and soul. It is the most profound connection two beings can share. Heat flooded Maya's cheeks, and she looked down at her plate. The implication was clear. If she went down this path with Lucien, it would become something intensely intimate, something that went far beyond normal relationships. I know this is overwhelming, Lucien said quietly. You need not decide anything tonight or next week or even next month. I have waited 900 years for you, Maya. I can wait as long as you need. She appreciated that more than she could say. Taking a breath, she asked, what would my life look like if I stayed here? Would I be a prisoner in this beautiful underground palace? Absolutely not. You would be free to move about the city, to continue your work if you wished, to maintain whatever aspects of your human life brought you joy. My guards would accompany you for protection, but they would be discreet, and you would have responsibilities here as well, if you chose to embrace them. What kind of responsibilities? Learning our ways, our politics, meeting the members of my court, understanding the complex web of alliances and tensions that govern our world. Eventually, if you wished, you could take on diplomatic duties, help govern. Lucien smiled slightly. I could use someone with your compassion and strength in my inner circle. Too many vampires forget what it means to care for the vulnerable. The idea was simultaneously terrifying and thrilling. Maya had spent her whole life feeling powerless, struggling against circumstances beyond her control. The thought of having real influence, real power to make a difference, called to something deep inside her. There's something I need to know, she said carefully. The way you talked about drinking blood, having willing donors, are there humans who know about vampires who help you? Yes, more than you might think. Lucien set down his glass. We have humans who work for us in various capacities, staff members for our residences, lawyers who handle our legal affairs, doctors who help us navigate modern medical systems. They are well compensated and protected, and they keep our secrets. Some provide blood willingly, either for money or because they enjoy the experience. Enjoy it? Maya couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. A vampire's bite releases endorphins in humans, makes the experience pleasurable rather than painful. For some, it becomes addictive. His expression turned serious, which is why we have strict laws about consent and frequency. Taking too much blood or feeding from unwilling victims are among our highest crimes. What happens to vampires who break those laws? I execute them personally. The words were flat, final, and Maya believed him completely. Beneath his cultured exterior, Lucien was a predator and a king. He would do what was necessary to protect his people and maintain order. It should have frightened her. Instead, she felt oddly reassured. He was dangerous, yes, but he was also controlled, honorable in his own way. They talked for hours, ranging over topics from vampire history to the complex political landscape of different territories. Maya learned that there were vampire kingdoms all over the world, each with its own ruler and customs. Lucien's territory covered the eastern United States and parts of Canada, making him one of the most powerful monarchs in the vampire world. She learned that vampires aged incredibly slowly after their transformation, that they could heal from almost any injury except those caused by sunlight, fire, or decapitation. She learned that they could go weeks without blood if necessary, but preferred to feed regularly to maintain their strength. And she learned that vampire society was ancient and rigid in many ways, bound by traditions and codes of honor that stretched back millennia. "It sounds complicated," she said finally, exhaustion creeping in again despite her long sleep. "It is, but you are intelligent, Maya. You would adapt quickly." Lucien stood and offered his hand. "Come, let me show you something before you retire for the night." She let him lead her through more corridors, deeper into the underground complex. They passed rooms that appeared to be offices, a large space that looked like a training hall, and finally stopped before a set of ornate double doors. "This is the heart of my home," Lucien said quietly. "I have shown it to very few people over the centuries." He pushed open the doors to reveal a massive chamber that took Maya's breath away. It appeared to be carved from natural stone, stalactites hanging from a ceiling that soared impossibly high overhead. In the center was a pool of water so clear it looked like glass, reflecting the thousands of candles placed throughout the space. The walls were covered in flowering vines that perfumed the air, and soft music played from somewhere she couldn't identify. "It's beautiful," Maya whispered, afraid to break the spell of the place. "I found this natural cavern when I first claimed this territory. I built my residence around it, preserving it as a reminder of the natural world we vampires have lost." Lucien walked to the edge of the pool, his reflection perfect in the still water. "I come here when I need to think, to remember who I was before immortality changed me." Maya moved to stand beside him, drawn by the vulnerability in his voice. "Do you miss it, being human?" "Sometimes I miss the sun most of all. The warmth on my face, the way light played through leaves in summer." His expression was wistful. "But I do not regret my choice. This life has given me power to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Time to learn and grow in ways a mortal life could never allow. And now, it has brought me to you." He turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his crimson eyes made her heart race. "Maya, I know you need time. I know you must process all of this and decide what you truly want. But I need you to understand something. In 900 years, I have never felt what I feel when I look at you. You are not a convenience or a passing interest. You are everything I have been searching for across lifetimes, my mate, my match, the other half of my eternal soul." Maya's breath caught. No one had ever looked at her the way Lucien was looking at her now, like she was precious beyond measure, like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. "I barely know you," she whispered, but her protest felt weak even to her own ears. "Then let me court you properly. Let me show you who I am, who we could be together." He reached up slowly, telegraphing his movement, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His cool fingers lingered on her cheek. "Give me a chance to prove that this bond is real." She should say no. She should run back to her normal life and forget any of this ever happened. But as she stood there in that impossible underground sanctuary, surrounded by beauty and candlelight, with an ancient vampire king looking at her like she held the sun in her hands, Maya couldn't make herself refuse. "Okay," she breathed. "Court me then. Show me this world of yours." The smile that broke across Lucien's face was brilliant with joy. He took her hand and pressed his lips to her knuckles in a gesture of courtly devotion. "You honor me, my Maya. I will not disappoint you." The next several weeks passed in a blur of new experiences and revelations. True to his word, Lucien courted Maya with a patience and attention to detail that left her breathless. He took her to private concerts where vampire musicians played instruments that had been old when her grandparents were born. He showed her the extensive library and encouraged her to read whatever caught her interest. He introduced her to members of his court carefully, always staying close to ensure she felt safe. Lady Seraphine remained skeptical, but gradually warmed to Maya's presence, particularly when Maya stood up to a sneering vampire noble who'd made a dismissive comment about human pets. "I am not a pet," Maya had said coldly, facing down someone who could have killed her without effort. "I am here by choice, learning about your world. If that makes you uncomfortable, perhaps you should examine why." Lucien had watched from across the room, pride evident in his expression. Later, in private, he'd told her she'd handled herself perfectly, showing strength without being foolish, demanding respect without being aggressive. "You are a natural diplomat," he'd said, trailing cool fingers down her arm in a gesture that made her shiver. "My court already speaks of you with respect." But it wasn't all political maneuvering in vampire society. Lucien also showed her smaller kindnesses that meant even more. He remembered she liked chocolate and had exotic varieties brought in from around the world. He arranged for her apartment to be maintained and her bills paid without her having to worry. He even had his people locate her brother Ethan and ensure he was safe, though Lucien advised against contact until Ethan got his life in order. "He put you in danger," Lucien had said, something dangerous flickering in his eyes. "I cannot forgive that easily. But I understand he is family and you love him, so he will be protected and watched for your sake." The thoughtfulness of it, the way he balanced his own anger with her feelings, touched Maya deeply. Lucien was learning her, paying attention to what she needed, even when she didn't voice it. And she was learning him in return. She learned that he was deadly in combat but gentle with those under his protection. That he had a dry sense of humor that emerged when he was comfortable. That he read voraciously, everything from ancient philosophy to modern science fiction. That he sometimes stood in the doorway of her chambers while she slept, watching over her like a guardian angel. She learned that the bond between them was growing stronger, even without any magical exchange of blood. When they were apart, she found herself thinking of him constantly. When they were together, the air between them seemed charged with electricity, awareness crackling in the space that separated their bodies. It was that awareness that led to the turning point. They were in his study one evening, Maya curled in a chair reading while Lucien reviewed reports from his various territories. It was companionable, comfortable in a way that felt like they'd been doing this for years rather than weeks. "Maya," Lucien said suddenly, and something in his tone made her look up. His jaw was tight, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. "You need to return to your chambers." She blinked, confused. "What, why?" "Because your scent is driving me mad." The admission seemed torn from him. "You smell of warmth and life and everything I crave, and my control is not infinite. Please, go." Instead of being frightened, Maya felt a flutter of something else, power, desire, curiosity. She set down her book slowly. "What if I don't want to go?" Lucien's eyes snapped to hers, glowing crimson in the lamplight. "Do not play games with me, Maya. You do not understand what you are inviting, don't I?" She stood, her heart hammering but her decision made. "I've been here for weeks, Lucien, learning your world, getting to know you, and every night I return to my chambers alone and wish you were there with me." He was on his feet in an instant, moving with that impossible vampire speed to stand before her. "Maya, I want this," she interrupted, reaching up to touch his face. His skin was cool beneath her palm, smooth as marble. "I want you, not because of any bond or destiny, but because you're honorable and patient and you look at me like I'm the most important thing in your world." "You are," Lucien breathed. His hand came up to cover hers, pressing it more firmly against his cheek. "Maya, if we do this, if we begin this, I will not be able to let you go. Do you understand? You will be mine, and I will be yours, for as long as you live." "Then I guess you'd better make sure I live a very long time," she whispered. Lucien made a sound that was half growl, half groan, and then his lips were on hers. The kiss was everything Maya had imagined and nothing like she'd expected. His mouth was cool but not cold, firm and demanding but also carefully controlled. He kissed her like she was fragile and precious, like he was afraid he might break her if he unleashed the full force of what he felt. Maya pressed closer, her hands sliding into his silky white hair, and kissed him back with all the pent-up longing of the past weeks. She felt his control slip slightly, felt his arms band around her waist, pulling her flush against him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, though she suspected that was for her benefit rather than his need, Lucien rested his forehead against hers. "Are you certain?" he asked roughly. "Once we begin the bond, Maya, there is no going back. We will be connected, your life tied to mine. I need to know you are choosing this with full knowledge of what it means." "I'm choosing you," she said firmly. "Bond, immortality, vampire politics, all of it. I'm choosing this life, Lucien." "Then let me do this properly." He pulled back slightly, his expression solemn and tender at once. "Maya Delacroix, I offer you my blood, my protection, my heart, and my eternal devotion. Will you accept the bond between us? Will you become my mate, my companion, my queen?" The formal words felt weighted with power, with significance that echoed through centuries of vampire tradition. Maya took a breath and met his crimson eyes steadily. "I accept," she said. "I choose you, Lucien Deveraux. I choose this bond." Something shifted in the air between them, a snap of energy that made Maya gasp. Lucien's eyes widened slightly, then he pulled her close again, burying his face in her neck. "Thank you," he murmured against her skin. "Thank you for this gift, my heart." Then she felt the sharp press of his fangs, and a moment of instinctive fear spiked through her. But Lucien didn't bite down. Instead, he pressed a gentle kiss to her pulse point and lifted his head. "Not yet," he said. "The blood bond comes after when you are ready. Tonight I simply want to hold you, to know you are mine." He swept her into his arms, cradling her against his chest, and carried her through the corridors to his private chambers. Maya had never been in this part of his residence before, and she looked around with interest as he shouldered open the door. His rooms were magnificent, all dark wood and rich fabrics, with artwork on the walls that was probably priceless. But what caught her attention was the enormous bed draped in black silk, and the sudden realization of what was about to happen. Lucien set her down carefully on her feet beside the bed. "We do not have to do anything you are not ready for," he said quietly, reading her nervousness. "I am content simply to hold you through the night, to wake with you beside me." The sweetness of the offer made Maya's chest tight with emotion. This powerful ancient being was being so careful with her, so considerate of her feelings. It made her certain she'd made the right choice. "I want this," she said again, and reached for the hem of her sweater. What followed was tender and passionate and overwhelming in the best possible way. Lucien made love to her with centuries of experience and knowledge, but also with a vulnerability that told her this meant as much to him as it did to her. He whispered to her in languages she didn't understand, telling her she was beautiful, perfect, his. And Maya gave herself to him completely, trusting him with her body and her heart in a way she'd never trusted anyone before. Afterward, as they lay tangled together in his silk sheets, Lucien pressed a small knife into her hand. "If you are ready," he said quietly, "make a small cut on your finger. Drink 3 drops of my blood, no more. That will begin the bond without risking transformation. Later, if you choose to become vampire, we will complete the process fully. But this will connect us. Let us feel each other across distance." Maya's hand trembled slightly as she pressed the knife to her fingertip, creating a small cut that welled with blood. Lucien brought his own finger to his mouth, biting down with one sharp fang, and held it out to her. 3 drops, he reminded her. "Trust me, my heart." She did trust him completely. Maya brought his finger to her lips and tasted his blood, cold and metallic but also sweet, with an underlying power that made her head spin. 1 drop, 2, 3, she pulled back, and Lucien immediately brought her injured finger to his mouth, his tongue sealing the small wound with something in his saliva that made it heal instantly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Maya felt a sudden awareness of Lucien's presence in her mind, his emotions washing over her like a wave. Love, devotion, protectiveness, desire, all tangled together and focused entirely on her. It was overwhelming and beautiful and intimate beyond anything physical. "Can you feel me?" she whispered. "Yes." Lucien's voice was rough with emotion. "Yes, I feel you. Your warmth, your light, your beautiful soul. Oh, Maya, you are perfect. You are mine and I am yours forever." He kissed her again and Maya felt their bond solidify, settling into place like a key in a lock. She was connected to this ancient vampire king in a way that transcended normal understanding. And instead of being frightened, she felt complete. This was where she belonged, with him, in this impossible world of shadows and secrets and immortal love. Everything after that night fell into a new pattern. Maya moved into Lucien's chambers properly, and the entire court learned that their king had claimed a mate. The reactions were mixed. Some vampires were genuinely happy for Lucien, while others saw Maya as a threat or a weakness to exploit. The first real test came 3 weeks after the bond was completed. Maya was in the library, reading about vampire history, when a cold voice interrupted her thoughts. "So you are the human who has bewitched our king?" She looked up to find a male vampire she didn't recognize. He was handsome in the way all vampires were, with the characteristic pale hair and skin, but his eyes were a disturbing shade of yellow and something about his expression set off alarm bells. "I haven't bewitched anyone," Maya said carefully, marking her place in the book. "Lucien and I chose each other freely. Did you?" The vampire moved closer, circling her chair like a predator. "Or did our king in his loneliness convince himself that a weak human could be his equal? It is almost sad watching such a powerful being debase himself for fleeting companionship." Maya felt her temper rise. "Who are you?" "Lord Malachi. I have served in Lucien's court for 2 centuries and I have seen him make mistakes before. You are simply the latest." His smile revealed fangs. "Tell me, little human, what happens when you age and die in a few short decades? Will Lucien move on to the next warm body? Or will he finally accept that kings do not take mortal mates?" Before Maya could respond, the temperature in the library dropped precipitously. Lucien appeared in the doorway. his expression colder than she'd ever seen it, his eyes blazing with fury. "Malachi," his voice was deadly quiet. "Step away from my mate now." The vampire lord froze, genuine fear crossing his features. "My king, I was simply threatening her, questioning my judgment, implying that Maya is temporary and insignificant." Lucien moved into the room with predatory grace. "Would you like to repeat any of those insults to my face?" "I meant no disrespect, liar." Lucien was suddenly beside Maya's chair, one hand on her shoulder in a gesture of possession and protection. "You have been a thorn in my side for decades, Malachi, too ambitious for your own good, too proud to accept your place. I have tolerated your scheming because you are useful, but threaten my mate again and I will end you. Is that clear?" Malachi's jaw clenched. "Crystal, my king. Good, now get out of my sight before I reconsider letting you live." The vampire lord fled, and Lucien immediately turned to Maya, his hands coming up to frame her face. "Are you all right? Did he hurt you?" "I'm fine," she assured him, though her heart was still racing. "Just shaken. I should have warned you about him specifically. Malachi has been lobbying for me to take a vampire mate from one of the noble families for years. He sees you as an obstacle to his plans for political advancement." Lucien's expression was grim. "I will post additional guards, no." Maya stood, meeting his eyes firmly. "I won't live in fear, Lucien. If I'm going to be your queen, I need to face these challenges. I need to prove I'm strong enough to stand beside you." Pride flashed across his face, followed by concern. "You are strong enough, but that does not mean you must face danger unnecessarily. There are vampires in my court who would see you dead to weaken me. Then we deal with them together." Maya took his hands. "I have your blood in me now, right? The bond? Doesn't that give me some protection?" "Yes. Any vampire who harms you will feel my wrath instantly through the bond, and your blood will poison them, marking them as having attacked my mate. It is one of our oldest laws. Harming a bonded mate brings automatic death sentence." He pulled her close. "But I would still rather prevent any harm from coming to you in the first place. I know, and I love you for it." The words slipped out naturally, and Maya realized they were true. Somewhere in the past weeks she had fallen completely in love with this ancient, dangerous, impossibly tender vampire king. Lucien went very still. "Say that again." "I love you," Maya repeated, smiling up at him. "Is that so surprising?" "Yes. No, I had hoped, but—" He kissed her deeply, pouring emotion into the gesture. When he pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. "I love you too, Maya. More than I have words to express. You are my heart, my soul, my reason for existing." They stood there in the library, holding each other, and Maya felt the bond between them pulse with warmth and certainty. This was real. This was forever, or at least for as long as her mortal life lasted, which brought her to a decision she'd been contemplating for days. "Lucien," she said carefully, "I want to talk about transformation." He stiffened, pulling back to study her face. "Are you certain? We have only been bonded for 3 weeks. There is no rush, Maya. You can live a full mortal life, and I will cherish every moment, and then I'll die, and you'll be alone again." She touched his face gently. "I don't want that for you, and I don't want a normal human lifespan anymore. I want centuries with you, Lucien. I want to be truly your equal, to share your immortal life." "The transformation is not easy," he warned. "It is painful, and there is always a risk of death. I could not bear it if I lost you." "You won't. I'm strong, and I have you to guide me through it." Maya smiled. "Besides, you said my blood is compatible with yours, that we're true mates. Doesn't that mean I have a better chance of surviving?" "Yes," he admitted. "True mates almost always survive transformation. The blood recognizes each other, makes the change easier. But almost is not certainly, Maya. Nothing in life is certain." She took a deep breath. "But I am certain that I want this. I want to be vampire, to stand beside you not as a fragile human who needs constant protection, but as your partner, in truth your queen." Lucien searched her face for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "If this is truly what you want, I will give you this gift. But not yet. Give yourself 3 more months to be absolutely certain. If you still want transformation, then I will perform the ritual myself." It was a reasonable compromise, and Maya agreed. The 3 months that followed were intense and transformative even without the physical change. Lucien taught her how to defend herself, putting her through training sessions with Lady Seraphine that left her exhausted and bruised but increasingly capable. He introduced her to the leaders of other vampire territories through video calls and formal visits, establishing her as his recognized mate. And he showed her the darker side of his world, the rogues who had to be hunted, the criminals who broke vampire law and faced his judgment, the political machinations that threatened the delicate balance of power between different courts. Maya learned that being a vampire queen wasn't just about luxury and immortality. It was about responsibility, about making hard choices, about standing firm in the face of criticism and danger. She learned, and she grew stronger. The incident with Lord Malachi came to a head 2 months into her 3-month waiting period. Maya was walking through one of the residential corridors with 2 guards when she heard a woman crying. Following the sound, she found a human servant huddled in an alcove, blood trickling from puncture wounds on her neck. "What happened?" Maya demanded, kneeling beside her. "Lord Malachi," the woman sobbed. "He said he had permission, but I didn't want to, and he forced me." White-hot rage flooded through Maya, accompanied by an echo of Lucien's fury through their bond. Forcing a human to provide blood was one of the highest vampire crimes, and doing it in Lucien's own residence was a direct insult to his authority. "Stay here," Maya told her guards. "Get her to the medical wing. I'm going to find our king." She didn't need to go far. Lucien appeared moments later, moving so fast he was almost a blur, with Lady Seraphine right behind him. "Where is he?" Lucien's voice was deadly calm, which was somehow more terrifying than shouting. "I don't know, but he hurt one of the servants, forced her to let him feed." Maya pointed toward the alcove. "She's injured but alive." Seraphine went to help the woman while Lucien stood utterly still, his eyes blazing with cold fire. "Malachi has gone too far. This cannot stand." "What will you do?" Maya asked. "I will call a formal court and execute him for his crimes." Lucien looked at her, and she saw the ancient king in his expression, merciless, powerful, absolute. "And you will stand beside me as my bonded mate. So the entire court understands what happens to those who break our laws." 3 hours later, Maya stood in the grand hall of Lucien's underground palace, wearing a black dress that Seraphine had helped her choose. It was elegant and severe, making her look older, more authoritative. Her hair was pulled back, and at Lucien's insistence, she wore a silver circlet set with rubies, a visible symbol of her position. The hall was filled with vampires, dozens of them, all gathered to witness justice being carried out. Lord Malachi knelt in the center of the space, his hands bound with silver chains that burned his skin. He looked defiant despite his position, his yellow eyes finding Maya and filling with hatred. Lucien sat on a throne-like chair on a raised dais, and Maya stood at his right hand, her chin high despite her nervousness. This was her first formal court appearance, and every vampire in the room was watching to see as she handled herself. "Lord Malachi," Lucien's voice rang out, commanding the attention of every being present. "You have been accused of forcing a human servant to provide blood against her will, a direct violation of our most sacred laws. How do you answer this charge?" "I answer that I am a vampire, and she was human," Malachi said coldly. "We are predators. It is our nature to take what we need." A murmur ran through the assembled vampires, some shocked, others seemingly in agreement. Lucien's expression didn't change. "Our nature does not excuse cruelty or violation of consent. We are not animals, Malachi. We are intelligent beings capable of controlling our impulses. You knew our laws and you broke them deliberately." He leaned forward slightly. "And you did so in my own residence as a direct challenge to my authority." "Your authority is weakened," Malachi spat, his control finally cracking. "You have bound yourself to a mortal, made yourself vulnerable to a creature who will wither and die in a few decades. How can we respect a king who shows such weakness?" Before Lucien could respond, Maya stepped forward. Her heart was pounding, but her voice came out steady and clear. "You mistake compassion for weakness, Lord Malachi. You mistake honor for vulnerability. King Lucien has ruled these territories for 400 years with strength and wisdom, and his choice of mate does not diminish that in any way." She held the vampire's hateful gaze. "I may have been born human, but I carry the king's blood now. I am bonded to him, and I will stand beside him for as long as I draw breath. If that bothers you, that is your failing, not ours." Silence fell over the hall. Maya could feel dozens of eyes on her, assessing, judging. Then Lady Seraphine began to clap slowly, and one by one, other vampires joined in. Not all of them, but enough to make the approval clear. Lucien's hand found hers, squeezing gently, and she felt his pride and love wash through their bond. "Well spoken, my mate." He turned his attention back to Malachi. "You have been judged and found guilty. The sentence for forced feeding from an unwilling human is death. I will carry out this sentence myself, so that all present understand that our laws are absolute." What followed was swift and brutal. Lucien moved with that terrible supernatural speed, and Malachi's head separated from his body before the vampire could even scream. The body crumbled to ash within seconds, leaving only the silver chains behind. Maya forced herself not to look away, not to show weakness. This was the reality of the world she'd chosen. Sometimes justice was violent and final. "Let this serve as a reminder," Lucien announced to the assembled court. "I do not tolerate violations of our laws, regardless of the perpetrator's status or lineage. We are vampires, but we are not monsters. We can be more than our base instincts, and I expect everyone under my rule to comport themselves accordingly." The court was dismissed, And as the vampires filed out, many of them bowed to Lucien and Maya, both a sign of respect that hadn't been offered before. Maya felt a small thrill of victory. She had proven herself capable, had earned at least some of the court's approval. That night, curled up in Lucien's arms in their private chambers, Maya finally let herself process everything that had happened. "You did beautifully today," Lucien murmured, stroking her hair. "You spoke with authority and wisdom. The court respects you now in a way they didn't before." "I was terrified," she admitted. "That makes your courage all the more impressive." He tilted her face up to kiss her gently. "You are going to be a magnificent queen, Maya. I have never been more certain of anything. Then I don't want to wait anymore." She met his crimson eyes steadily. "Transform me, Lucien. Make me vampire. I'm ready." He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "If you are certain, then I will honor your choice. But not tonight. This is a sacred ritual, and it requires preparation. Give me 3 days to make arrangements, and then I will give you immortality." The 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Lucien explained every step of the process, ensuring Maya understood exactly what would happen. Lady Seraphine spent hours with her, teaching her meditation techniques that would help her endure the pain of transformation. Other members of Lucien's inner circle came to offer their support and advice, treating her as one of them already. On the third night, Maya found herself in the natural cavern with the crystal pool, the same place Lucien had first showed her weeks ago. Candles illuminated the space, and Lucien had prepared a bed of soft blankets and pillows near the water's edge. "This place has always been sacred to me," he explained, helping her settle onto the blankets. "I wanted your transformation to happen somewhere beautiful, somewhere that represents new beginnings." Maya's heart was racing, but she felt no regret. This was right. This was what she wanted. "Walk me through it one more time," she requested. Lucien sat beside her, taking both her hands. "I will drain you to the point of death. You will feel weak, cold, your vision will fade. Then I will give you my blood, a significant amount, more than the small taste you had before. Your body will fight the transformation, and it will hurt terribly. But if your will is strong enough, if you hold on and push through the pain, you will emerge as vampire. The process takes several hours from start to finish. And you'll stay with me the whole time? I will not leave your side for even a moment." His grip tightened. "I will anchor you, Maya. When the pain becomes too much, when you feel like you cannot endure another second, reach for our bond. I will be there, giving you my strength." She nodded, taking a deep breath. "I'm ready." "Then lie back, my heart. Trust me and know that I love you beyond measure." Maya reclined on the blankets, her eyes fixed on Lucien's face as he leaned over her. He pressed a soft kiss to her lips, then her jaw, then her throat. She felt his fangs extend, pressing against her skin. "I love you too," she whispered, "now and forever." Then he bit down and the world dissolved into sensation. At first it wasn't painful, just a strange pulling feeling as he drew her blood. But as he continued to drink, Maya felt herself growing weaker, her limbs heavy and cold. Her vision started to blur and panic clawed at her chest. Lucien's voice came through the haze, steady and sure. "Do not fight it, Maya. Let yourself drift. I have you. You are safe." She tried to trust him, tried to let go of her fear. Her heartbeat slowed, becoming irregular, and she felt herself slipping away from consciousness. Cold, so cold, like drowning in ice water. Then Lucien's wrist was at her lips, blood flowing warm and thick into her mouth. "Drink," he commanded. "Drink deeply, my mate. Take my blood and let it transform you." Maya drank, the taste metallic and sweet and powerful. She felt the blood travel through her system, felt it reach her dying cells and spark something new. Then the pain hit. It was like being burned alive from the inside out. Every nerve ending screamed, every cell in her body reshaping itself at the cellular level. Maya tried to scream, but she couldn't make her voice work. She writhed on the blankets, her back arching, her hands clawing at nothing. Through the agony, she felt Lucien's presence in her mind, felt his love and strength pouring through their bond. "Hold on," he urged. "Stay with me, Maya. You are strong enough. Fight through the pain. Fight for me, for us, for the eternity we will share." She clung to his voice like a lifeline, using it to anchor herself as her body died and was reborn. Time lost all meaning. There was only pain and Lucien's voice and the determination to survive. Gradually, impossibly, the pain began to fade. Maya felt her heart stutter and stop, felt her lungs take one last breath and go still. For a moment she panicked, convinced she was dying for real. Then everything sharpened. She could hear water dripping from stalactites 100 feet away, could smell the wax of every individual candle, the mineral scent of the stone, the complex bouquet that was Lucien's presence. Could see in the dim light as clearly as if it were full daylight, every detail of the cavern rendered in perfect clarity. Maya opened eyes that she instinctively knew had changed color and found Lucien leaning over her, his expression anxious and hopeful. "Maya, my heart, can you hear me?" "Yes." Her voice sounded different to her own ears, clearer, more resonant. "I can hear everything." Joy broke across Lucien's face like sunrise. He gathered her into his arms, holding her so tightly she might have worried about bruising if she were still human. "You did it. You survived. Oh, my love, my mate, my queen, you are magnificent." Maya clung to him, overwhelmed by the flood of new sensations. Everything was more intense, more vivid. She could feel Lucien's emotions through their bond with perfect clarity now, could sense every shade of his love and relief and pride. "How do you feel?" he asked, pulling back to search her face. "Strange, powerful, hungry." The last word came with a sudden sharp awareness of thirst, a craving unlike anything she'd ever experienced as human. "That is normal. Your body needs blood to complete the transformation fully." Lucien helped her sit up carefully. "I have donors standing by, humans who have volunteered and been compensated. Whenever you are ready." "Not yet." Maya touched her face, feeling the contours that were the same but also somehow different. "Do I look very different? See for yourself." Lucien led her to the edge of the crystal pool, and Maya gasped at her reflection. Her skin had taken on the characteristic pale, luminous quality of all vampires, smooth and flawless. Her hair remained its natural dark brown, but it seemed to have more shine, more body. But the most striking change was her eyes. They glowed a deep violet, beautiful and inhuman and powerful. "You are breathtaking," Lucien murmured, his arms around her from behind. "A true vampire queen." Maya turned in his embrace, and for the first time she could meet his supernatural strength with her own. She kissed him fiercely, and felt him respond with equal passion, no longer holding back the way he had when she was fragile and human. "Make love to me," she demanded against his mouth. "I want to experience this new body with you." Lucien needed no further encouragement. He laid her back down on the blankets and proceeded to show her exactly how different and wonderful vampire senses could make physical intimacy. Maya discovered that everything was heightened, every touch sent sparks of pleasure through her. Every kiss tasted like starlight and eternity. Every moment felt suspended in perfect clarity. Afterward, as they lay tangled together beside the pool, Lucien finally took her to feed for the first time. The willing donor was a young man who worked in Lucien's household, and he smiled at Maya with genuine warmth. "Congratulations on your transformation, my lady. It's an honor to be your first feeding." Lucien guided her through the process: how to bite cleanly, how to drink without taking too much, how to seal the wound with her saliva when finished. The blood was incredible, flooding her system with warmth and strength and satisfaction that was almost erotic in its intensity. When she pulled back, the thirst was sated, and she felt fully alive for the first time since the transformation began. "Thank you," she told the donor, who bowed and left them alone again. "How do you feel now?" Lucien asked, watching her carefully. "Complete." Maya took his hand, marveling at how she could feel his pulse through his skin, could sense the blood flowing through his veins. "Like all the pieces of my life have finally fallen into place. Good, because now the real work begins." His expression turned serious. "Tomorrow, we will make a formal announcement to the court and to the other vampire territories. You will officially become my queen, my co-ruler. There will be challenges ahead, vampires who resent your rise to power, politics and dangers we must navigate together." "Together," Maya echoed, liking the sound of that word. "I'm ready, Lucien, for all of it." The announcement was met with mixed reactions, as expected. Some vampires celebrated, seeing Maya's transformation as a romantic triumph. Others grumbled about a human-born vampire ascending to such heights. But no one could deny the power of the bond between Lucien and Maya, or the strength she'd already demonstrated. Lady Seraphine formally swore fealty to Maya as queen, a gesture that brought many other court members into line. "You have earned this through courage and grace," she told Maya privately. "I doubted you at first, but you have proven yourself worthy of standing beside Lucien. I am proud to serve you both." Over the following months, Maya grew into her role as vampire queen. She learned the intricacies of vampire politics, helped negotiate treaties with other territories, and used her former experience as a nurse to improve healthcare arrangements for the human servants in their household. She also helped Lucien modernize some of the more archaic vampire traditions, pushing for stronger protections for humans who worked with or for their kind, and advocating for education programs to help newly turned vampires adjust to their transformation. The changes weren't always popular, but with Lucien's support and her own growing reputation for fairness and strength, Maya made them stick. Her brother Ethan eventually came back into her life, stunned to discover what had happened to her. He'd gotten himself clean and sober, working a normal job and trying to make amends for the trouble he'd caused. "I'm sorry," he said when they met in a neutral location, with Lucien's guards discreetly nearby. "For everything. For being stupid and reckless and putting you in danger." "I forgive you," Maya told him honestly. "What happened to me because of your choices ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. I found love, purpose, a whole new life. So in a strange way, I should thank you." They rebuilt their relationship slowly, and eventually Ethan became one of the trusted human advisors in Lucien's court, using his own experiences to help other humans navigate the vampire world safely. Time passed differently for Maya now that she was immortal. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. She and Lucien traveled extensively, visiting other vampire kingdoms and strengthening alliances. They faced threats together: rogue vampires who challenged Lucien's rule, political rivals who sought to undermine their authority, ancient vampires who disapproved of how they governed. But through it all, their bond only grew stronger. They were partners in truth, balancing each other's strengths and weaknesses, ruling their territories with wisdom and fairness. 20 years after Maya's transformation, they stood together on a balcony overlooking the city above their underground palace. Technology had advanced, the world had changed, but their love remained constant. "Do you ever regret it?" Lucien asked quietly. "The life you gave up to be with me?" Maya turned to face him, taking in his beloved features still as beautiful as the night she'd met him in that alley. "Never. Not for a single moment. Not even when you think about growing old, having children, experiencing a normal human life. There's nothing normal about being attacked by debt collectors," Maya pointed out with a smile. "And as for children, I've been thinking about that, actually. There are orphaned vampire children, fledglings who were turned too young and need guidance. We could provide them with a home, a family." Lucien's eyes widened with surprise and delight. "You would want that? To take in younglings?" "I would. Not to replace human parenthood, but to create our own kind of family. To give back to our community." She moved into his arms, resting her head on his chest. "We have eternity. Lucien, let's fill it with love and purpose in making the world better for all beings, vampire and human alike." "You are extraordinary," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her hair. "Every day you remind me why I waited 900 years for you. Why every moment of loneliness and searching was worth it." "We found each other," Maya said simply. "In the darkness of an alley, in the midst of danger and debt and desperation, we found each other. Everything else is just details." They stood there together, king and queen, looking out over the city they protected. Somewhere below, in the grand halls of their palace, their court went about its business. Guards patrolled, servants worked, vampires and humans coexisted in the delicate balance they had worked so hard to create. It wasn't a perfect world. There were still challenges to face, still battles to fight, still work to be done. But Maya and Lucien would face it together, bonded by blood and love and the choice they had both made to see beyond what was expected and reach for something greater. The debt collector who had attacked Maya in that alley had been trying to collect on money owed. Instead, he had inadvertently brought together two souls meant to find each other across the centuries. He had set in motion a love story that would span eternity, a partnership that would change vampire society, a bond that would prove stronger than any challenge or threat. Maya had been drowning in her brother's debts, struggling to survive, feeling powerless and alone. Now she stood as a queen, powerful and confident, with a love that would last forever. The vampire king had been searching for 900 years, lonely despite his power, incomplete despite his strength. Now he had found his mate, his equal, the other half of his soul. Together they were unstoppable. As the night deepened and stars emerged in the sky above the city, Lucien took Maya's hand and led her back inside. They had a court dinner to attend, diplomatic meetings to prepare for, a kingdom to govern. But first they would steal a few precious moments alone, wrapped in each other's arms, celebrating the love that had transformed both their lives. "I love you," Maya whispered as Lucien pulled her close in the privacy of their chambers. "And I love you," he replied, his crimson eyes soft with devotion. "For now and for always, my heart, my mate, my queen." They kissed, and the bond between them pulsed with warmth and certainty and unshakable love. This was their happy ending, not an ending at all, but a beginning. The start of forever, faced together with courage and passion and hope for all the centuries to come. Outside their chambers, the vampire court continued its eternal dance of politics and power. Above the underground palace, the city lived and breathed and moved through its nighttime rhythms. The world turned, time passed, but some things remained constant. Love, loyalty, the bond between two souls who chose each other against all odds. Maya and Lucien had found each other in violence and darkness, But they had built something beautiful together, a partnership that would endure long after the memories of that first meeting in the alley had faded into history. They had faced every challenge together, overcome every obstacle, proven to themselves and their world that love could bridge even the gap between mortal and immortal, human and vampire, two beings from entirely different worlds. And they would continue to face the future together, king and queen, partners and mates, two halves of a perfect whole. Forever wasn't just a promise. It was their reality, their gift to each other, the ultimate expression of the love that had blossomed from the most unlikely of beginnings. The debt collector had her pinned against the wall. The vampire king stepped from the shadow behind him. And in that moment, two destinies aligned, two souls recognized each other, and everything changed. It was the beginning of a love story that would never end. Years continued to pass, each one bringing new experiences and challenges. Maya and Lucien adopted 3 orphaned vampire children, over the decades youngsters who had been turned in tragic circumstances and needed guidance and love. The palace filled with laughter and life in ways it never had before, and the court adapted to having young ones present. Maya proved to be a fierce, loving mother, teaching the children how to control their new instincts while also helping them hold on to their humanity. Lucien was patient and firm, guiding them through the complexities of vampire society and politics. Their family became a symbol of hope within the vampire world, proof that their kind could create beauty and love, not just survive in the shadows. Other vampire leaders began following their example, establishing programs to care for orphaned and abandoned fledglings. Maya's influence extended beyond their immediate territory. She helped establish the first official vampire-human council, a governing body where both species could negotiate agreements and address conflicts peacefully. It was revolutionary, and it wasn't always smooth, but it represented a new era of cooperation. On their 50th anniversary of being bonded, Lucien surprised Maya by taking her back to the alley where they'd first met. It had changed over the decades, gentrified, cleaned up, no longer the dangerous passage it had once been. "I wanted to remind you where we began," he said, holding her hand as they stood in the space that had transformed both their lives. "I wanted to honor the moment that gave me everything." Maya looked around, remembering that terrified woman she'd been, struggling and desperate and convinced her life was falling apart. She thought about how wrong she'd been. Her life hadn't been falling apart at all. It had been breaking open, making room for something far greater than she could have imagined. "I wouldn't change a single thing," she said firmly. "Not the fear, not the danger, not even the debt that brought me here. Because it all led to you. To us. To this incredible life we've built together." Lucien pulled her into his arms, and they kissed in that alley the same way they'd kissed countless times over the decades, with passion and tenderness and absolute certainty that they belonged to each other. Above them, the city continued its eternal rhythm. Below them, their palace waited, full of family and court and purpose. Around them, the night wrapped them in shadows and secrets. But between them there was only light, the unbreakable bond of two souls, who had found each other against all odds, who had chosen love over fear, who had built an eternity together, one moment at a time. The debt collector had her pinned against the wall. The vampire king stepped from the shadow behind him. And from that moment of darkness and danger, they had created a love story for the ages, a tale of transformation and trust, of power and partnership, of a human woman who became a queen and a vampire king who finally found his home. Their story would be told for centuries in vampire courts around the world, a legend of true mates and perfect bonds, of love that conquered death itself. But for Maya and Lucien, it wasn't a legend or a story. It was simply their life, complex and beautiful and real. Their forever, earned through courage and choice, blessed with a love that would truly never end. Hand in hand, they left the alley and returned to their palace, to their children and their court and their responsibilities. To the kingdom they ruled together, to the future they would shape together, to the eternity they would share, together, always together, forever.